Hey everyone, this is Ian with Bold Profits, and welcome to your weekly video. This week I'm going to be talking about recession fears, all these headlines coming out on the internet, on the news, and everything. But I'm going to be talking about it at a little bit of a different angle than I have before, because what I've noticed over the past couple weeks is the narrative has kind of changed. Now people aren't talking about rates as much. First it was that rates are too high, and then it was that the yield curve was inverted and all this other stuff. But now the trade war is front and center on why we are going to have a recession next year or this year. I've seen all kinds of articles. One was from Morgan Stanley that said the recession's coming possibly in 6 to 9 months even. There was one from UBS that said the trade war is going to put the entire world into a recession within the next couple of years. And then there was even one that said the U.S. going into a recession is going to happen before the trade war is even over. So they're covering all sorts of angles on this, but I just want to go over what's actually happening, why China is getting hurt by this a lot worse than we are. In fact, our economy is still going strong, but some of the things that people are using against China are, number one, their currency has gone down a lot. So compared to the dollar, it's now cheaper to buy things from China. The reason that this could be bad for us is because it encourages other companies to buy from China rather than to buy from us. But it also kind of weakens the tariff. So if their currency's down, their goods are cheaper, but they're charging us an extra amount on them in the form of a tariff, it balances it out. So the tariffs aren't doing as much damage as people think. Another thing that's really hurting them is the fact that a lot of American companies are actually starting to leave manufacturing in China. They're shifting to other countries that are right in that same region, like Thailand, Korea, Singapore, all these other emerging economies that are growing, and they're getting out of China. And these are huge companies. So we have clothing brands like Steve Madden, L Brands, Hasbro, the toy company, one of the biggest toy companies in the world, and a lot of huge tech stocks like Google, Apple, Dell, Nintendo, iRobot, all of these gigantic multi-billion-dollar companies, in Google and Apple's case, hundreds of billions of dollars worth. So when you take all that into account, they are really getting hit hard by the trade war. They're taking hundreds of billions of dollars worth of goods out of China. They're making them somewhere else. Loses a lot of business for China. Gets rid of jobs. It gets rid of production. So it's really that's one area where they're really not going to be able to sustain if we don't come to an agreement sometime soon. And that's on top of the fact that companies that have done business in China have repeatedly said that China has done things like steal their tech, their IP. CNBC has this list of 23 companies in America that do business in China, and these are the biggest of the big companies from here that do business over there. So Apple and Google, IBM, GE, these huge companies, and 7 out of those 23 have reported that China has stolen their technology within the past year alone. So there is a problem with that too, and that's been going on for quite a while. That's one of the reasons that we're in the trade war to begin with, is because they were treating our companies unfairly. They were stealing technology just blatantly. So these two reasons are really, really hurting China's business because everybody wants to get out of there now. And the IP theft from China actually costs us an estimated 250 up to a $600 billion per year. So it's not cheap. Even though the labor is a little bit cheaper there, possibly, it's not cheap when we're losing hundreds of billions of dollars because of IP theft. And now they're starting to pay the price for that because people are starting to leave. And it's really taking a toll on their production. So last month, it was reported that they had 4.8% growth in production over the past year. And that is the lowest number that they've reported since March of 2002. So it's been about 17 and a half years since they had something that low. And obviously, when you're the biggest exporter in the world and your production is down even more than it was during the Great Recession, you're in trouble. So they really are trying to scramble to find some way to solve this problem. Their consumers are being hit hard too. So they had the worst consumer, the retail sales number was the worst in over 16 years. So people are buying less because their unemployment rate is going up, and their consumer is unhealthy. And the consumer economy in China, so people making more money, as their economy has grown, people have really started to do well over there. They're making more money, they're spending more, kind of like we are here, but with all these issues, they're losing their jobs, they're not able to spend as much. And 80% of China's GDP growth is because of the consumer economy. So they really need their people to be out spending, buying things, driving the economy higher, and that's not happening. So really, they're in a really, really tight spot right now. And meanwhile, the U.S. economy is still chugging along fine. So our production has been up month over month for 13 out of the past 18 months. And the reason that I use 18 months is because you could say the trade war officially started February of 2018. That was when the first kind of tariff threat was imposed. So it's really been a year and a half now, and it's gotten a lot worse for China. And here it's not too bad at all right now. So 13 out of those 18 months, production here has grown. And that is the best 18-month period that we've had since 2013 and 2014, where we were still in the kind of early stages of the recovery from the Great Recession. So the fact that we're still on par with that level of production is pretty encouraging. But you'd never know it by looking at the headlines that are out right now that say we're about to go into a recession. Another area of our economy that's surprisingly strong and that you would never know about is the retail sales. So people are still going out and buying things. So 22 out of the past 25 months, retail sales have been up. And that is the best streak that we've had since 1999 or 1997 through part of 1999. So over 2 years of amazing consumer economy, which is really important for us, just like China, because it drives 2/3 of our economy. So we are kind of at the polar opposite of what China's going through. They are having the worst production, the worst retail sales in almost 2 decades, and we are having the best consumer economy since, or in the past 20 years, more than 20 years actually, and our production is still on par with where it was while we were coming out of the Great Recession. So overall, when you read these headlines and when you read these articles, there's so much negativity, there's so much that could make you think that we really are headed for a recession. But when you look at the overall economy, our production, our retail sales, our housing market, our unemployment, they're all very, very strong. And so we just wanted to let everybody know that we do believe that the market still has a long way to go up. Obviously, it's been really volatile, really shaky for the past month. May was rough, August was rough. But we do believe that this trade war is going to come to an end very soon. Obviously, we'll keep everybody updated with that as more comes out. But it is in the final stages. It has to be, because China can't let this go on to their economy much longer, or they're actually going to be in some really serious trouble. And for my millennial topic of the week, I want to talk about VR, virtual reality. It's this amazing technology that millennials have really caught on to. A lot of people know it as kind of a video game technology, but it's going to be used for much more. It already is, and I'm going to get into that in a little bit. I actually just got the new Oculus Quest, which is the newest headset that has come out. It's my first time getting a VR headset, and I have to say it's pretty amazing. I haven't been this excited about a video game system probably since I was in like middle school. So it's been a while since I was really into video games. I'm not much of a gamer, as I've said before, but this is a completely different thing. And I can see how it's going to revolutionize a bunch of different ways of living that we are so used to doing a certain way. Is going to make things a lot easier. And the Oculus Quest, that one I just showed you, actually sold out from Amazon, Walmart, and Newegg, these huge online retailers, in the first week that it was on sale. So it's been extremely popular. The old Oculus, the Rift, which was their first model, they're still making it, but it was the first one they ever brought to the market back in 2016, sold out while it was still in the pre-order stage. And the first HTC, which is another big headset maker, the HTC Vive sold out very quickly. The PSVR and Oculus's second headset called the Go both sold more than 1 million headsets last year. The PSVR is on track to sell 2.2 million headsets this year. They're getting extremely popular. There's a lot of millennials and Gen Zers who use these, especially for gaming, but there's so many other uses. And one of the things that I've used on mine is this app called Wander, which is basically Google Earth. You can see all these different places on this map, and then you pick a place to go, and it shows you basically a 3D image of someone who took pictures of this place in a circle. You're in the middle of that circle. You can turn around 360 degrees and see where you are in the world. It's in pretty much every country you could possibly think of. It's even in like Antarctica, North Korea, which obviously is not a great place to get into. So it's a safe way to see North Korea if you want to. But it's really, really interesting what you can do with this technology. And actually one of the top comments on the Wander app was someone who said that they were planning their honeymoon, and they went to the place that they were planning on going on their honeymoon in the Wander app so they could see what it was like, and that actually helped them with basing their decision on what hotel to stay in. So it's obviously more than just gaming. You can actually, with this app, you can go anywhere in the world and see what things are like. You can travel, you can go to places that you're thinking about traveling, and kind of scope them out, see what you want to do there. It's really, really interesting. And it's not only gaming, it's going to impact the workplace too, because millennials are really dead set on having new technology, especially at work. I saw this survey that said that 83% of millennials will base where they work based off of the workplace setting and the technology that workplace offers. So if they have good technology, millennials are more likely to work for you. And there's all these surveys out there. That's one of them. There was another one by Nielsen, a huge survey that found that 74% of millennials feel that new technology makes their lives easier. 54% of millennials feel that it brings them closer to friends and family. I can personally attest to that. I love talking to my parents about new tech, especially things like VR. I've been talking about that to them for a while now, VR and AR. Trying to convince some of my friends about the future of VR. I think they're slowly starting to believe me because of all the articles I send them. But the only way to really be able to tell just the potential of VR is trying it. So if you don't have a VR headset, I do recommend that you try it at least. There are places where you can go to use VR where you don't necessarily have to buy it, but it is a really cool experience. So it has a big say in millennials, where millennials want to work. And a lot of millennials are working remotely, or at least want to work remotely. So a lot more jobs are offering that. With VR, you can call into like a conference call through VR. You can have meetings, things like that. They're already doing this at a lot of companies. So Honeywell has adopted VR. UPS is using it for their drivers to kind of get some practice driving their trucks. It's amazing what you can do with the simulators in VR technology too. You can make it actually so you're driving a truck. And Walmart is using this in 200 of their training academies. So they have these big complexes where they train employees, and they're using it for customer service. So they can have like a whole Walmart store simulated in this VR kind of not really a game, but it is kind of like a game. And they can go around the store, they can tell where everything is, they can have interactions with customers, and it's really like being there in real life. And it's amazing that Walmart, hundreds of billions of dollars worth of a company, is investing in this to train their employees. That really says something. Same with Honeywell and UPS. These are really big companies that trust this technology. They're finding that it helps train their employees. And more, we're going to see newer companies adopt this technology too, because they don't really have a choice. Because if you want to survive, as millennials continue to take a bigger share of the workforce, if you want to have a happy staff of employees, you're going to have new technology like VR to assist with the everyday tasks of working. Or like I said, you can use it for conference calls, meetings, things like that. And we're also seeing it in education. So there's a software called Rumi, which is used for conference calls. It's also being used for education, so online classes. Harvard is using it. This college in China called Zhejiang is using it, which is basically Ivy League level, kind of like the Harvard of China. And it's gotten a lot of really positive feedback. And obviously, those aren't the only two colleges that are using it, but they are some of the world's best schools. And you'd think that they would be the ones to really get this technology early because they want to maintain that top tier status. And they know that people nowadays like VR. They want to use whatever technology is new and good. And they're, like I said, they're having a lot of positive experiences with that. And I know, because I took online classes a couple summers, that it can be really, it's like you're not even taking a class. It's just like someone shoving a bunch of work in your face through a computer screen. There's no structure to it or anything, but if you do it through VR, you could be like in a real classroom where you're with students, with the teacher. You can interact with people. You could talk. It's completely different than what an online class always has been, which is basically if you're doing it like I did it, you wait until the last week, do all the homework, you take the final on the very last day, just cram everything into the last week, which you don't really retain anything by doing that. So I think that VR is the way to go for online classes. I could see that becoming extremely popular too down the road. And Roomy Software is a really, really good proponent for that. They're one of the first that I've seen that's really taken this to the level that they have. Like I said, they're in Harvard. They're in some of the best colleges in the world. And this technology is, like I said, is taking over a bunch of different aspects of the way we live. We never even fathomed having a VR classroom, wearing a headset and being in class, or training Walmart customer service employees with VR. It was 20 years ago, it would have been laughable. And VR was out 20 years ago, but it was really, really primitive. There wasn't really anything like today, but we're finally at the point where it is starting to disrupt these major kind of industries that we know and we live with every single day. Our jobs, our education. Obviously, education is all millennials and Gen Z, or at least a vast majority are millennials and Gen Z at this point in undergrad and grad schools and things like that. So really, the whole point is that millennials love technology. VR can be used in so many ways. It's so useful. And we really are starting to see a widespread adoption of that. And to invest in VR, there's not that many options available in the stock market. There's some like picks and shovel type plays, like the companies that make the components for the headsets, or a couple companies that make the headsets, but it's not their whole business. And to invest in this, I would recommend buying shares of this video game ETF. It started out as a VR AR ETF, but I think it didn't really catch on that way. But it's been the name has been changed, but it's really all the same company. So the public perceives VR as video games, so it got changed to a video game ETF. But it still is a great way to invest in VR because it's full of companies that make things that have to do with VR. So they basically make all the components and parts that make up these headsets, the software, all that technology. And the ticker symbol is VIDG. So that is how I would recommend getting into this technology at this time. Obviously, down the road, as these startups that are specializing in VR start to go public, there will be a lot more options. But getting in early is obviously really important. So that's how I would recommend doing that. That is all I have for this week. This is Ian for Bold Profits. Happy Friday, everybody, and have a great weekend.